Welcome to Talking Heads on USA Global TV, starring the one and only wonderful Dr. Jacalyn. It's a prestigious place where world-class influencers and experts meet, and where you'll find the most trusted advisors and coaches for all things in life and business. Visit usaglobaltv.com to sign up for our newsletter, get the value you need, and be first in line to learn about events and giveaways and other valuable content. Connect with us. Email Dr. Jacalyn at usaglobaltv.com to talk about how you can become part of USA Global TV. That's USA Global TV, where the doctor is always in.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to USA Global TV, and hello to our friends listening on Business Talk Radio. I am Dr. Jacalyn Kerbeck, and our show today is The Listening Mentor. This is where I feature people from our team of distinguished, elevated listeners. These are individuals you must get to know on a personal level and a professional level because they offer you a safe space to listen and share your stories. Today, I am joined, as always on Fridays, by my friend. She is the Harley Street stress expert, and she has been helping me bust through my stress. Let's welcome Caroline Heward.
Hello.
Hello, nice to see you.
Good to be back.
I feel like we're simpatico because we're both in black and white. Your hair is black, your dress is white. Yeah. Chair's red, lipstick red. Yeah, I love it. So, Caroline, something came up yesterday that I thought we could just start off with when it comes to listening. So for folks who are joining us for the first time, this show is all about listening skills and also about listening to your intuition and listening to your inner self. And sometimes we have role plays and we go down different tangents, but I'd like to start off talking about the challenge of staying focused when you're listening. And what I mean by that is the mind is going back and forth. And so you're giving the person a space to share what they have to. And as an elevated listener, you've committed to giving this space for this amount of time. But the mind starts to stray sometimes and things pop into our head. What are your thoughts on how to tame that beast and keep our focus?
That's a good one, because a lot of people do that because they drift. And my biggest piece of advice and the biggest tip is, if you find that your mind wanders, ask a question, which it will make you listen, and then you're a bit more interactive. So if you ask a question, if your mind starts wandering, you become present again to being with that person and listen actively, because they might ask you a question. And if they ask you a question, it'd be really cool if you did listen and hear everything they said. There's nothing worse than somebody that's been speaking turns around and said, "So what do you think about that then?" And then you turn around and say, "Well, think about what?" Because you didn't hear what they were saying. So I would bring yourself back by asking a question, or asking them to clarify what they've just said. But interact if the mind wanders, because it is about being present with the other person and listening actively, unconditionally.
I really love that. That's a great tip. You've probably experienced this in your role as the Harley Street stress expert, probably when you're working with me, actually. I know I've experienced this when I work with clients. So you're the active listener and you've got a client or you've got a friend or whatever the situation is. And the person says, "I'm really excited to share something that happened with you." And you start over here. "I was at the store and I was doing this and I was doing that. But what I really want to tell you is 10 layers deep. We're over here, but it's really here that I want to go." So as an elevated listener, as someone who is accomplished in the area of listening, it's easy to lose focus potentially because this is not the real conversation or the real issue. You've got to get down to here. So in terms of training your mind, you could ask a question knowing that we have to go deeper. So, well, thank you, Caroline, for this opportunity. But is what happened to you at the store today what you really wanted to talk to me about? Well, no, actually, it's not. I want to talk to you about that.
We remember stories, and that's one of the things that the brain doesn't really keep facts very easily, but it remembers stories. So as long as the story is succinct, I'm a storyteller. I like sort of, paint the picture in lots of words. And I know others that do. And I know others that just like it to give, just give it to me straight. Just tell me, what you're trying to get to. And it really just depends on the listener as well. They might like your stories. I have had feedback from a couple of people to say, can you just get to the point? And then there's half the jokes along the way, because there is some, sort of things that I want to share along the way. I'm a bit of a storyteller. And that means that people remember what I've said because they remember all the elements. That it's not just factual. And my biggest tip on that is to keep the stories relevant for the listener. So, make sure if you do have to paint that, sort of the story, a little bit more of the detail, keep it as short as is possible. And one of the things that I say is, I'm sharing this with you because this is relevant to what we're talking about. So I give a little bit of an indication of why I've shared that little piece of information that doesn't sound like it's relevant. And then it kind of all packs together as when I've unpacked the whole story.
That's brilliant, because then you've set the stage. You've let people know what's coming. A story's coming and it's relevant to whatever it is that we're talking about. I love to tell a story. I really do. My dad was a great storyteller. And I remember, this is not that long ago. I've been retired for 2 years from corporate. So let's say it was 4 years ago. And I was telling the story. I told it before, and I was at the table. It was a business dinner, and there were, I don't know, 15 people there. And I was like, da 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 da. And I looked over, and my executive, who's younger than I am, just had this blank look on his face, like, what are you doing? And I thought to myself, what's up? He's not into this story. This is a great story. I mean, people are like, what? What I told before. So I quickly came to an end. And afterwards, he said to me, how was that story relevant to everybody who was at the table? And I thought, oh, it actually was not relevant to everyone. So I should have done what you had suggested. And that was a good lesson for me, that it's not just about telling a great story, because not everyone thinks it's great. Not every book is for every person, right?
And also, without being sexist, and I'm doing my best not to be, the masculine energy just wants you to get to the point.
Yes.
So it's not all men. It's the masculine energy wants you to kind of, they're in their mind going, well, come on then, what's this all about? Just kind of, give it to me. and so if you can see that they're looking a little impatient, share why that you're sharing this little piece with them, because then you're going to keep them with you. And then they kind of see the whole thing. But the masculine energy, and as I said, that we're all masculine and feminine, and the masculine energy likes the information quick. The feminine energy likes to paint the picture. She likes to, the feminine energy is more creative. It's more flowery. It's more, I kind of liken it, because my background's marketing and PR, and I started off in PR, and I learnt to write beautiful copy. And I was always told I just wrote well. And I thought they were just, being polite. I just wrote till I thought they were just being nice, and polite. And when I went into marketing, the marketing messages actually had to be succinct, short, and to the point, because I was writing for flyers and for brochures, and so it had to be really short, not flowery and story-like. And I remember one of my directors, he turned around to me and he said, "Caroline, you write beautiful copy." He says, "You just write too damn much of it." He says, "We just give it to the point." So, I've been in PR and I've been in marketing, and the two places are very different. Marketing's to the point, and PR is the story, the humanist element, all the flowery stuff. So I liken it to that because I've been in both parts, equally in agency life, and so it's a good distinction that sometimes it's good to just get to the point and share the points. And then there's other times that it's nice to flower it up and, use lots of words and explanation and making all the singing, all the dancing, all the bells on it. I like to do all the bells, and but I'm known for my stories, and usually they get a little laugh. So.
I totally agree with everything you're saying. I'm a person who has the bells and the whistles, the whole thing. And I was brought up in my generation to use big words and use a lot of words. And in corporate, again, 5, 6, 7 years ago, working for younger people, I was told when you speak or write, it should fit into the number of characters on Twitter. Yeah. And I said, "What? Who told you that? That doesn't make any sense." But even with when you talk about listening, I also liken it to when you're interpreting a message. So, for example, if I send you a text message and you're reading it, it's like you're listening to what I'm saying, even though I'm not verbally saying the words, but I'm communicating with you. And there can be a lot of misinterpretation, I think, because there's too few characters, too few words. Many people they'll send a text message that you could interpret it as, "Wow, how rude is that person?" And they didn't mean it in that way at all. They just wanted to be to the point. And I want some more. Give me some emojis. I love emojis. I know you and I talked about that. If I send someone a text message and there's no emoji later, I'm like, "Oh no, they must think I hate them, or I'm in a bad mood or something." It's like, I need the emojis.
Well, there was a time that there was no emojis, and I didn't like texting. It took a long time for me to feel comfortable to text. I would much rather leave a voice message, because at least they'd got my tone, how I sounded. And I totally agree with you that sometimes the written word, especially in a text, it can almost seem very flat, and it can almost seem quite sort of harsh and terse. And when you've got the tonality behind it, the softness of the voice, it doesn't seem so harsh anymore. And so, I've been at the end of messages where I've thought, "Oh, that's a bit short," and it's our today's culture that people write in short. I actually, I learnt good grammar at school. I'm very much, I do write properly. And, I dislike having text messages that have great with the 8 on it. And sometimes, I just think, what does this mean? I have to work it out, so I usually turn around and say, "Can you just write properly, please?" rather
How
than
does
in
that
text.
go over, Caroline?
Sorry?
How does that go over when you say that? Can you write properly? Do you get "Oh, okay, great," or "Who do you think you are?"
Well, I just actually say that I don't like text speak. It's hard for me to work out what they're saying. So if you write properly, then, I can understand what you're saying. I've not changed. I still write full text messages. It doesn't matter how long it takes me. I will spend the time writing a real message with all the words and the emojis and all the flowery stuff. That's my way of communicating. It isn't the way for most people. Then I've also received huge commendation for my communication. that sort of people actually really like receiving an email or a text message, because it's considered, that the words, it feels like it's a nice message rather than a curt no thank you, or no. I've had some message where it just says no, and I thought, oh, okay. I guess that we're in a very busy world, and some people don't have the time or the attention on it. I grew up a long time ago. I went to school many, many years ago, and it was customary to write in full, and people appreciated it.
I totally agree with you. And I feel like I laugh about this, but my schedule is on an Excel spreadsheet, and literally everything is on there. And sometimes I have a window of maybe 15 minutes, and I need to communicate to a number of people because they've gotten in touch with me. So I'll leave a voice message, which I don't know how people feel about that or not, but I try to leave as much information as possible. And if I had my choice, I would write out a full email the way that you do, because I think that's very proper. But I don't have the ability to do that all the time. So then I leave the voice message. What do you think? Is that appropriate, or?
I think it's brilliant. I really do. Because one of the things that I do, if I don't have time to write a proper message, I don't do it. And so then they might wait for much longer for my response. So I've got some emails waiting for me that I have to compose a proper response. And they've been left for a couple of days because I just haven't got to them. And so, yes, I must admit, you've left me some voice messages, and they're always eloquent, that they've got everything in there, and I can, it has all the detail that I need. And I appreciate them. And I've only just worked out how to leave voice notes. One of my promoters actually said, you never leave voice notes. And I think it's because, he said, it's either that you don't like them or you don't know how to do them. And he said, so I'm going to teach you how to do one. And when I told him it was because I didn't know, and I kept getting these voice messages, he said, well, most people aren't writing anymore. He said they don't have time to write. They leave voice notes. So,
I feel like it's a good way to communicate. And to your point, if I can't let things wait, because a lot of times they're sensitive. It's about a broadcast. It's about a guest. It's about something. And so I have to get back to the person because I don't want to leave them hanging. And I remember when I was in corporate, we were told you had to respond to the client within 24 hours. But that being said, sometimes like on my schedule, I pencil in a walk. So I leave a lot of voice notes when I'm walking, which I'm supposed to be walking and observing, but it's like a working walk, So I'll leave messages in that regard. And I especially like to leave voice notes for people I don't know, because I want them to hear my voice and know that I'm a real person. Because people say, oh, someone on your staff can do it. Hello, staff members. Where are you? Ta-da! So I want people to know I'm a real person and that I do care, and that they're going to be hearing directly from me. And I hope people appreciate that.
No, I've always felt extremely privileged when you've taken the trouble to leave a voice message, because it's full and it's complete. And, I can feel that it's probably because you don't have the time, and it's complete. It's like leaving it's the kind of message that I normally leave if I'm leaving a voice message on a phone call, for a phone call.
Yes. Well, thank you for that. One thing about time, and I think this is interesting, listening to your body, listening to your intuition. I used to get up when I was in corporate, 5 o'clock, 5 a.m., 5:15. Today I got up at 8. Felt pretty darn good. So I'm getting between like 10 hours of sleep sometimes, which I really need. But I'm also checking my messages during the middle of the night, because there are people from different time zones and I don't want them waiting, or I only have maybe an hour of daylight before they are it's the next day and I won't be able to hear from them. So that's kind of what the timing looks like now, taking time for myself, but also taking the time for someone else.
I used to be like that when I was in corporate. And because of the work that I do now, if I'm with a client, I'm with a client, and I will not go and look at my phone. I won't respond to messages, and sometimes it can be hours. And so I've lost that intensity, because if I'm with a client, I'm totally with that client. And
Awesome.
I feel that it would be totally inappropriate for me to have my phone next to me, dropping, sort of text messages or voice messages while I'm with them, because I wouldn't be actively listening and I wouldn't really be with them. And so I feel I've got to the point of feeling really comfortable about not responding straight away, because of the nature of the work I do. And you're the same. You're in broadcast. If you're on a show, you can't be on your calls and messaging people. That would be too difficult. I
People
know you
think I
do.
can be. I know people are like, I'm like, hello, you see me. You wrote that you see me. How am I supposed to get back to you? I'm working here.
It's funny, isn't it?
It is funny. It is. I wanted to talk about something else today because we have a new course. I want to put it up, and then I want to just have you go back and forth with me a little discussing it. So our new course is called The Power of Listening Part 4, The Transition, Facing the Shadows of Ourself. And I'm facilitating this with the wonderful Madeline Chan, our team member. And basically, this course is how we look at the migration between a 3D world, a world that's where we use our ego, we're led by ego, capitalism, materialism, into a 5D world where we are focused on inner peace, world peace, as I know these are big issues that are important to you, and listening to our heart. But what do we do in between when we're making the transition? And I think there are a lot of people who are in 4D. So when it comes to listening and moving from one to the other, what are your thoughts based on your experience and your expertise in the area of listening?
It's challenging. It's very challenging, because I do know a lot of people that are in that shift and flux of, there's sometimes that they're spending it in 3D because they have to earn their money, and they have to, sort of make sure that all those things work and they're able to pay their bills. And then there's other times the same people are in, high levels of meditation, and then they're sort of straddling. And I feel that there's a lot of people, including myself, we're straddling between, that what we have to do in our current world and where we prefer to be. And from my perspective, and I share this with my lovely mentor, my shaman. I actually say, I like to be in this floaty, fluffy cloud, and time goes quickly. And actually, at the same time, I'm much more present when I'm in a meditational state, and I don't notice the time because I'm so present. And when I have to get something done, like sort of to a deadline, like accounts or something like that, then I have to get really into the minutiae, and so I have to come down into what would be 3D, because there are certain things that we have to do. So I feel from the listening perspective, it's important to straddle so that you accomplish everything according to where we are, because we haven't moved. You can't do everything in 5D at the moment, because we're still in the time of having to live in this 3D world.
Yeah, I love the way that you express that. That makes a lot of sense. I also think, based on my experience as an interviewer, there are people who desperately want to leave 3D, and they're willing to take the steps, except they don't want to let go of the paycheck. And It's like, no,
That's
yes.
what I'm talking about.
So you and I both did it because we both left corporate, and there's a big transition, and you've been an entrepreneur for a lot longer than I have, but I'd never go back. And by the way, I'm grateful for what I learned when I was there. I really am, because I did learn a lot. And I think if you take away the financial aspect of it, first of all, when you're in corporate, depending on what kind of work you're in, there can be a ceiling to how much you earn. Whereas when you're out on your own, there is no ceiling. You just have to figure it out.
That's a good one.
Exactly. So I think that there's pros and cons to both. But what would you say is the thing that you learned that has had the most significant value since you left corporate and went out on your own?
This is because this has come up this week. It's a really good question. And that is that when I was in corporate, I had my holidays and I had my bank holidays, because the Brits have much more holiday than the Americans, and I look forward to the weekends when I wasn't working. And I got very, very stressy with my then husband because he was self-employed, and the weekend was when he was always working, and the bank holidays we never really did very much because he'd always got his head in the laptop. And I said, I will never go self-employed because I'll never become boring. And then when I went self-employed, and I set up my limited company, I realized why he was busy. And then I had a little bit more patience, because when the weekends and the bank holidays are there, that's when most people are able to come and see you. So they tend to be my busiest times. So I can be very busy around times like Easter, bank holiday, and sort of the different bank holidays and weekends that we have. And so it's turned on its head. And it's interesting because I can earn more money in the weekends and in the holiday time than I probably will in the average time when most people are working, because they're calling me and seeing me when they're not working. So it's almost turning it completely on its head, and it's about adjusting to what the needs are in terms of your clients. And it does depend what you're doing for work. And it's a difficult one to juggle, because if you like your weekends and you like your bank holidays and you like your sick days, because that's something else that sort of is part of the package, or the person that the printer goes wrong and you just call somebody in IT and then they come and sort out your printer or your computer. You have to manage all of that. So all of those resources are not there, and it's about how you manage it, and certainly I felt very alone. And I used to love doing the networking events because then it meant that I was going out and seeing people. So you have to juggle what's important to you. And certainly I lost the importance of having the bank holidays and the weekends, because that was where I was working.
I appreciate you sharing that. And to your point, I don't even know. I think I had 5 weeks paid vacation when I left corporate. And now I work every day, including the holidays. As you know, I streamed on New Year's Day, worked on Christmas Day, on Thanksgiving. And by the end of the day, I have the same format, and I go over to Solidcore, then I come back. And sometimes I'm eating my dinner while I'm on the computer doing what I need to do. Whereas when I was in corporate, I had tons of free time. And I was paid to fly around the world, and I ate at the best restaurants, and everything was taken care of. And I think, if I think about a takeaway for me, I think I was always looking for outside acknowledgement of what I was doing, and I could never get it. And so I always had side jobs so I could feel that, I was doing things on the side, like makeup artist work that I love to do. And when I went out on my own, I'm not looking for any accolades from anyone, because now I see what it is that I've accomplished, and I just need me to know about it. But before, it was always like that dangling carrot. And, that's like sort of like an addiction. You can never get enough. You can never get if you need it from someone else.
The approval seeking. Oh, yes.
Yes.
Because it's never enough. And only when I began working for myself did I really appreciate that I did have some skills and talents. I just thought people were just being nice or kind, or, I really did realize that I actually write really well. And I didn't appreciate that until I was writing my own stuff and able to communicate what I do really, really well. Whereas I was getting the feedback instantly every day. Whereas when you're doing it for somebody else, you're never quite sure. And I was, the same as you have been, that I was always doing lots of different things outside of my normal paid work. I do lots of non-exec chairman's roles, and lots of projects to gain that status quo of the kudos of the certificates and the trophies. I was a bit of an award-winning person. I was always doing something, and it was just my nature. So I do really get where you're coming from, and I do believe that I was that type of person that was looking for approval. And so that was my way of getting approval, not just in what I was doing for being paid, actually in other ways.
Yeah, it's a different world. It's completely different. But you and I have just said, and I'm sure there are other people out there who have their own businesses, that they'd never go back. And I think I mentioned this, I don't know if it was last week or in another show, because sometimes they blend in. But someone said to me, I know, I shared it with you when I saw you earlier in the week. Someone shared with me that I could go back to corporate and I could make a fortune, because there's so many jobs that are open. And I just looked at them and said, I'm done with that. I'm not going back. It's over. I love what I'm doing now. I love it. And when you have your own business, you can take on as many clients as you want. You can choose to work the hours that you want, but we still need people in corporate too. So we're not trying to convince everyone to leave.
Oh no, I mean it's horses for courses. That's my motto on it. It's what suits some people doesn't suit others. And I was always a bit of a maverick when I was in corporate anyway. I was always sort of flying by the seat of my pants, so to speak. And, I was doing it my way. And I did it well, and, I sort of managed to do things that were very different and sort of beat targets easily. Only, sort of, I used to say to myself, one day I'm going to get found out. But I never did. I always just managed to make it work. Don't ask me how. It's just something about being in that managerial, director role, that it was easy. I like the autonomy of it, and I feel that now I'm working for myself, I'm still a little like that. I like to have that something in the background that, I quite like to do this. And this is, another one of those projects, really. I'm loving this. I'm not being, this isn't getting a paycheck at the end of it, if you know what I mean, but I'm loving the sharing of my knowledge and my skills and helping people. And it's part of my makeup as a give back, and and at the same time still doing sort of the work that earns the money. So I think if you're made that way, then you have a greater sense of worth and satisfaction in what you do.
Yes, I agree with you. You and I have a lot in common, because when you're speaking, a lot of times I feel like, oh, that's the same way I feel. She just said it for me too.
Takes one to know one. We have a similar sort of background, and I wasn't jet setting quite as fancy as you were.
Well, and Caroline, I think our birthday's in the same month. Are you born in March?
April.
Okay, but you're in Aries.
I'm Taurus.
All right, so I got it
Literally
wrong.
I'm just literally, they call it on the cusp, so it's sort of in between Aries and Taurus. Mine's late April, 26th of April. So I've told everybody my birthday now.
Mine's March 26th. That's probably why I got it confused.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Yeah, we're 1 month apart.
Cool. Well, that's obviously why we get on so well.
Definitely. So when you think about listening, do you listen to what is shared through horoscopes and through astrology?
That's another really, really good question. I
That's why they
used
keep me
to.
around.
I used to, and I found it was all a little bit, sort of, oh, I don't want to be living my life like that. But what I have found is that as the years have gone by in terms of the work that I do, that I'm actually sensitive to the planetary changes, the full moons, new moons, and the solstices, and the eclipses, and the retrogrades. I found that I had a sensitivity when there was something happening. So I do tend to have people around me that have this knowledge, so that I'm aware when, there's a retrograde, that the computer doesn't work so well, when the tech seems to fall over or communication falls down. And so I don't get caught up. So I would say that I'm more interested in the planetary shifts and changes, and we've been having quite a lot of those in our times. And we've also, this month, for the first time in, I don't quite know how many years now, but we're in 2222. And so I've been doing ceremonies and meditations around, sort of 9/9, that's the 9th of September, 10/10, so that's 10th of October, 11/11, 11th of November, 12/12, 12th of December, because these are very key times. So it's not quite astrological horoscope, it's more, sort of planetary.
Interesting. I agree with that also. When I was younger, I used to look in the newspaper for the horoscope for Aries and whatever the special days were going to be. But as I got older, it kind of just fell by the wayside. And it wasn't until I started doing this platform, I've been doing this now, let's see, well, USA Global TV, I think we started in August of last year, but I was broadcasting before that. But I remember thinking to myself, a woman who is a psychic medium and she also does astrology, she gave me a reading years ago, like 10 or more years ago. And she said that I was going to end up on the red carpet, which I thought, what does that even mean? And lo and behold, I'm actually not on a red carpet. I'm on a green mauve. I think it's a gray-green carpet, but I'm in entertainment. So I think that's interesting.
Oh yes, it's very, I find it fascinating, because there is some meaning and relevance behind it. I follow Yasmin Bolan. She's an astrologist, Australian. She's very, very down to earth, incredible lady, ex-journalist. And she's written and published lots of books with Hay House. And I buy her diaries, and she has pages there that's like a journal with what you can fill in terms of the new moons, full moons, and what you're going to forgive and what you want to create. And it's kind of quite powerful because it focuses the mind, and it makes you realize that when we weren't westernized, we were very in tune with the sun and the moon and its changes. And sort of when the planet was going through the solstices, we were very in tune with it. So the indigenous tribes are, they don't work by a clock. They work by the sun and the moon and the sort of sunrise, sunset. We don't. We have a clock, and it's not really akin to what nature really is.
No. And especially on our electronic devices, the time's there automatically.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, I've never been able to wear a watch. I used to get very upset that they either went slow, they stopped, or they went fast. They never worked. And when the battery ones came out, I was very pleased that the battery, but they did the same. The battery just died on my wrist. So it
They
took me
do
on a
have
many.
self-winding ones. They do have those that don't need a battery. Yeah, so when it comes to watches and time, I think I've shared this before. I'm obsessed with my Apple Watch and not a paid spokesperson, but I just love it because it's monitoring everything I'm doing. And that's the part of me that likes the gold stars, to know that I've stood 8 hours, that I burned so many calories, that I had so many exercise minutes, that my blood oxygen level is whatever it is, my heart rate is. And I just love it. I don't know, there's something wrong with me. But when I broadcast, I don't wear it because
It would interfere with the technology, I am sure.
yes. Plus, I won't be burning very many calories, and then it'll keep, you should be burning more calories. I know, trust me.
Well, you can just by the fact of being, if there's like a stress of making sure that all the technology works, that will burn calories. So you'd be quite surprised if you're sitting and you're sort of you're managing the different bits of tech as well as sort of being the host, what's the main presenter. You're managing lots of different things, and so you will be burning calories.
Yes, I do. I have a whole table of equipment here. And the other thing is, as you probably know, I stand for all the shows. So if it's 21 shows a week, 21 hours, whatever it is. And when I first started, I think I had 15 shows and I was standing and my feet would kill me. And now they don't bother me at all. It's very strange.
You stand.
I'm,
Wow.
I'm standing. Woo, standing. And I have a chair here only because this is a big desk and there's no place to put the chair. But I'll find myself sometimes holding onto the chair and then I want to let go because I want to have good posture and be standing. So yeah.
Well, you can see that I sit.
Yeah, you're
I
sitting
definitely.
very straight.
Yeah, I mean, I perch on a chair. I don't sit. I'm not one of those people that sit back in a sofa. So I sit with a straight back, probably because of the work that I do. And I definitely couldn't be standing for all that length of time. I'm surprised. That's a new one on me. I thought you were sitting.
No, I'm
And
always standing. In fact, I thought about getting, and I had one and I gave it away, one of those medicine balls, that it's big and blue. You can sit on it. It's good for your core, for
yeah,
core workout, but people sit on it when you have a desk. And I thought about that and I thought, this is working for me. It's
wow.
yeah.
I am blown away by the fact that you're standing. I wondered
Every
where your
show.
chair was. I thought it was just a neat chair.
Yeah, no, see, no chair, nothing behind me. This is just the green screen. It goes from wall to wall. It's huge.
Right.
Yeah. So, and then in front are all the lights and all the equipment. So it's this is where I spend all my time. It's crazy. I'll come out and I'll see my mother and she's in the house and I'll see her and I know she thinks I'm sleeping or something. She has no idea what's going on in here with behind this green screen, but it's a lot of fun. And I really respect technology because it's given us the ability to connect all across the world. And I remember, and I've said this before, I met a lot of really great people from Clubhouse, especially Ben Chai. He's the first person I met who I brought to this platform. And I realized that having been in corporate for all those years, if I wanted to contact the CEO of a company, that's a huge deal, right? How are you going to draft an email that's going to get that person's attention? Or if you're going to make a phone call, how are you going to get through the gatekeepers, et cetera, et cetera? And then with the advent of Clubhouse, the CEO could be in any one of those rooms and then you just go and reach out to them. And I think it's really mind blowing that there are no barriers when it comes to reaching out to people now because of social media.
Yeah. Our world has definitely changed. It was a huge deal to be able to get anything on TV. You know, we had to pay a lot of money just for a page ad in a newspaper or a quarter page ad, you know, to reach people. But now we don't do that. You know, we just, a lot of people just literally do a Facebook Live, or they do, you know, sort of, they just get on their phone and they're connected, you know, to thousands, you know, millions of people. And it is a changed world, and in the same space, we have grown exponentially in terms of our technology. And we've also, I feel, we've gone backwards in a lot of ways in terms of humanity and the way that we are treating others, because what has happened is that the technology has taken over. And so we're living in a much faster paced world now, and forgetting about those human things that are important. You know, you don't, but there's a lot of people that, you know, do, because the speed of the social media is so much greater than literally seeing people face to face. So I feel that we've grown a lot, and yet we seem to have retracted in some ways too.
I would agree with that. And I would encourage people to watch our show, The Power of Etiquette and Manners, because we talk all about that. And a number of our guests actually do all their business from Instagram, which to me is amazing. They have no office, they have their Instagram account, and that's how they do business with their clients. So if it weren't for the technology, they'd have to find some other opportunities. But yet they communicate how to use the technology and still have manners and etiquette, be kind to other people.
It's fascinating, isn't it? Our world change. You know, it's just, it blows my mind. And at the same time as being exciting and thrilling, it can also be a demise, because if we lose ourselves in the technology, sometimes we can actually forget what it's like to connect one human being to another, you know, physically. And
Yes,
I
that's
feel
very
that
true.
a lot of our children, that they're in their screens and they're not connecting in the same way that they were meant to connect, you know, sort of eye to eye, you know, and be in the physical presence. I just feel that, you know, when I was a child, we used to run out and play, and, you know, we would get muddy and dirty, and nobody would be taking pictures of us or videos that would be there forever, you know. And I almost feel like, you know, that they have to be careful of so much. Whereas we could get muddy, fall over, you know, sort of look terrible, and our hair was a mess, but nobody would say anything. And we didn't have our pictures plastered all over, you know, the internet for somebody to start laughing about. So the world has changed for our children, and I do, you know, wonder how that affects them. You know, and I feel that we could be children, and I feel our children today have a lot more to cope with in terms of, you know, the stress and the anxiety of looking right all of the time, and, you know, sort of dressing appropriately for the camera, and always, you know, being what they think other people need to see and hear, rather than being their true selves.
Interesting points that you made. Yesterday, I was out for a walk and I walked by this church. It's huge, and they have a school, and the children were out playing. Oh my gosh, not dodgeball. I forget what it is. Kickball, I guess. And I noticed, you know, they were all in their uniforms and they had different two teams, and yet on the side where the coaches were, or the teachers, I noticed different individual children by themselves, looking out the fence, looking over here, like not interacting with anyone. And I felt so bad, because it's not like they were putting a time out, if they even do that anymore, I don't know, but they just were not engaging with anyone. And, you know, you see a little girl here and another girl here, and she's not talking to her. And yeah, they have a lot to deal with. It's very true. So when you think about one of my favorite rides is Disney World. It's a Small World. all the children, it's just in the different countries, and they're all little dolls. And it is a small world, but at the same time, there are big gaps when it
Yeah.
comes to human interaction in person.
And I feel that that's sad because they don't, sort of, they've been brought up in the screens, and some children, they're just glued to their screen, and so their social skills are lacking because that is where all their entertainment is. They're talking to their friends on the screen, and so that must be challenging in terms of the social, physical, and human interaction. Must be less for them.
Hmm. And I think also on the other end with the older generations, I've also seen that where they're in their screens because so much has happened that's been so traumatizing that it's easy to just escape into the device and not have to communicate with others.
I must admit, when we were in full lockdown, I was grateful for being on Facebook and being able to connect with friends because I live alone. And I was really, really grateful for that total interaction of people sending jokes and making me laugh and having conversations. It was just truly amazing. And I did feel very eye tired, really, really weary. It was quite draining to be in the screen, for such hours and hours. And when we were able to, sort of do things, it felt different. And I was actually quite tearful the first time I went out. I just cried, when I had met a friend that I hadn't seen for a while, and they just gave me a hug. I landed up bursting into tears because it was just so lovely to have that human physical interaction after so many months, and it made me realize how much one human being needs the physical connection and interaction with another human being.
It's so true. Thank you for sharing that. I remember the first time that I actually left the house to go somewhere was in July of last year, believe it or not. And my mom and I went to see my sister and her family, got in the car and drove. And as we were driving to the house, it was like a 5-hour drive. I just filled up with emotion because I actually felt scared. I felt it was like I was in another world. And I realized, wow, I had no idea how much of an impact being alone really had on me. And then, of course, being with the family, it's kind of like you hate to leave and go back to the isolation again because you realize
Yeah.
you've missed so much.
That's very true. When I was crying for a little while because I was overwhelmed with realizing how much I was missing. And, I've spoken to a few people about this, and it seemed to be that the people that were, and I don't want to be global in this statement, but, sort of the people that are more extrovert seem to have the challenges with being in isolation. And the people that had more introvert tendencies actually were loving it. They were
Mm.
loving the escape of, not having to do the interaction. I know that's quite a sweeping statement, and I don't want to, sort of tar everybody with, sort of you're either introvert or extrovert, but, sort of it'll be your tendency, your leaning, what's your preferred is. And some people just felt very comfortable with being in at their computer and, sort of being in that state of isolation. And I know for sure that, because I'm extrovert, that it just didn't work for me, and I was really told on me, that the lack of that physical interaction, it was a challenge, a big challenge for me. And the phone calls and the screen just wasn't enough. It was enough to keep me going, but it made me realize I really was missing human connection.
Yes, I agree with you. I agree with you. I remember at the very start of the pandemic, I was living in this beautiful apartment. I had this amazing social life. I think I moved 3 times during the pandemic. But so at the time, I New Jersey was put into a lockdown. And so basically there I was in my apartment by myself. And it got to the point where I was walking 2 miles around the kitchen each day, which, kitchen, it's a galley kitchen in an apartment, right? And having everything delivered and have it left outside the door. And 2 months went by and I decided, that's it. I have to get out of this place and do something. And I remember the fear when I opened the door. I had the gloves on, I had on double masks, and I opened the door to go out into the hallway, the same hallway that had been there, right, since the beginning of time when they built the building. It was like, oh my gosh, I'm going out into the unknown. Like I felt like maybe I was on a spaceship to Mars or something. And I got into the elevator and I was like in full blown panic. And by the time I got downstairs to the garage in my car, I thought, whoa, I have really been like isolated and had a big wall around me that was ridiculous. And I look up and I see the sun and I see there's been a whole world that I missed for 2 months. And that was a lot. And then moved again into another scenario with my mom, and we were isolated on an island, and that was another set of circumstances. So for children who are going through all this, I can't even imagine, to your point, growing up with screens, that this is the primary means of education, communication, and how will that look years from now?
I do feel that we're going to have an epidemic of severe anxiety and panic and stress for our children growing up. I really do. I feel for them because they've just literally had to comply for being in schools, and they've had their the way that they've been taught, taken away from them, not being able to interact with other children. I do feel that we're going to see the effects of what's happened to our children now in later life. I really do feel it's going to have a huge effect on them when they get older. Only time will tell, because it is a trauma. That there is a trauma that they're experiencing, especially the very young ones that have been isolated in pods. I've seen some horrendous situations where very young children are sort of on a mat on their own, and not able to interact, and they won't, very young children won't even understand. So I do believe that that's going to have an effect on their mental health in years to come.
Absolutely, because just from doing this platform, I've had people come on, adults who are struggling, who have major anxiety and depression. So just imagine if you were a child, don't even understand really what's going on and why it's going on. It's a lot, and especially for the parents as well.
Yeah, it's and that's why I do what I do, and I'm committed to making sure that I do as much as I can to help people that have stress and anxiety, because even I struggled with sort of the stress of being in isolation, not actually being in fear, but actually the isolation of it all. And so we've all, even the people that are really busy and earning tons of money, they also have their stress in different ways. So everybody is handling sort of our changed world times in their own way. I went to the supermarket. I want to share this with you because it was really hilarious. Last Friday, and in front of me there was a lady, and she had about 15 bottles of wine. I said, "Oh, party! Can I come?" And she said, "Oh, this is our week's supply of wine. That's just for the husband." And I said, "Really?" And she says, "Oh, yeah." She says, "We this is how we get by." And it was it was quite a revelation to me that she said that they were working, that they'd been full out, and they were having to deal with extraordinarily stressful times. And she said that the only way that they could do it was sort of with the wine. And I said, right. And I thought it was a party, and I was just making a bit of a joke about it, and I felt a bit embarrassed because I thought, I was being a bit jovial, and actually I was probably highlighting something that, probably wasn't good for them, and that is something that's being talked about, that the alcohol sales have shot through the roof, sort of alcohol, beer, wines, there's more sales. So we're going to have, an effect of that, of people drinking more.
And it might have been that she was really happy just to be able to get that out. Maybe she needed to tell someone that.
It was just, I mean, I was just, as I said, I thought I was passing the time and joking with her. So I was a bit embarrassed, when she said that, it was a truism of our times, that we're all seeking different things to cope. For me, I dance, I chant, so I sing along, and I do a lot of meditations, and I'm doing lots of things that make me feel good. So I literally float from one thing to the next, which is really good.
That's fabulous. I love it. I actually, before the last show, I was playing the piano and singing. And that makes me feel really good. And my mom listens to me, and I like that song. And so that's always nice.
Oh, how
I hadn't played
lovely.
in years. Yeah,
Oh.
in fact, since we've been here since November, I didn't play the piano again until this past week. And it was as a result of one of the guests that we had on our show, The Art of Mental Health Wealth, Mark Dietz. And he teaches people how to play the piano in 15 minutes. And I thought, I should play the piano every day for 15 minutes. And so I started, and it's been a wonderful thing, because why? The piano is right there. I was taking singing lessons. Why not put them together? And there's no one to laugh. So.
Wow. We're making a real do-some, aren't we?
Yes, definitely.
You with your piano, with my
singing. Oh my goodness. Well, Caroline, I didn't even realize we went way past the show time. Thank you for staying with me.
I just noticed too.
Well, thank you for staying here with me. I appreciate it. I'm going to spotlight you. And if you could share with our audience who it is that you would like to help, and how do they connect with you?
Well, because we're very late in the show, the people that I'm absolutely committed to help is anyone that is suffering with any type of stress, whether it's physical, emotional, mental, or behavioral. Anybody that's having any relationship or intimacy issues, anybody that's feeling anxious or depressed. I offer a free Zoom consultation for 30 minutes to bust your stress, and I'll identify the root cause of the symptoms that are causing you problems. And that is my gift for you. I've been doing this work for over 2 decades, and after the consultation, you'll have a very deep and restful sleep and wake up feeling really refreshed, and you'll feel relaxed during the call. That's my gift to you. Please call me out on it. Best way to reach me is on my email, no more stress, as the words, no more stress, @live.co.uk.
Thank you, Caroline. And I just had a session with Caroline this week. It was very helpful. So I do urge you to reach out to her. You'll feel so much better. And she really does care. And she won't be checking her phone, by the way. She already shared that with us. She will be.
I haven't done it here.
She'll be using her elevated listening skills. So please do reach out to her at nomorestress@live.co.uk. All right. Thank you so much, Caroline. It's a pleasure.
Thank you.
You
Bye-bye.
enjoy the rest of your weekend. Bye-bye.
You too. Bye-bye.
Bye. Well, folks, we have one more show coming up, which is Pet Psychic Amina. Normally, we would be broadcasting Loving Longevity, but Annie has the day off for today, so we will see her again next week. I have a big announcement that just took place today. I'm really excited. It has to do with the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation. So for those of you who don't know, I was diagnosed with ulcerative colitis in 1991, and it has plagued me for most of my life. But in 2018, I was introduced to the Crohn's Colitis Foundation. It totally changed my life. And now I am a fundraiser. I'm on the board. I run a support group. And we have an event coming up June 26th in Philadelphia. It is called Take Steps. And I have a team, Dr. J's Colitis Crew, very funny. And we actually walk together as a team. And this year it's at Lincoln Financial Field. So if you're familiar, this is in Philadelphia where the Eagles play. And I'm going to have a booth set up. I will be live broadcasting from the link, which is really kind of cool. And I would love to have you on my team. If you're in the Philadelphia area, or if you plan on being in Philadelphia, because I'm not in Philadelphia myself right now, I'd love to have you on the team. And we have a great time. We'll go out and celebrate afterwards. I'll put more information on social media on Facebook. My other announcement is we will be having a new program, myself and Justin Morigliani. He also is a team member here at USA Global TV. We have a show together called Entrepreneurs and So Much More. We are starting a new show that is completely dedicated and devoted to the Crohn's and Colitis Foundation for the Philadelphia and Delaware area. And we will be featuring people who are warriors of ulcerative colitis and Crohn's disease, board members, physicians. So look for more information about that. Okay, that's enough for now. I really appreciate you being here. I hope you have a wonderful weekend. Happy Valentine's Day. Remember, we're asking everyone, wherever you're watching our program from, please start watching from our YouTube channel, which is USA Global TV. We can get a lot of analytics there. And for you, the audience, you can find all of our shows organized into lovely playlists so that you can, for example, find this show after today in the Listening Mentor playlist. So once again, thank you. And you can also watch our shows on our website, usaglobaltv.com. All right. Thanks, Caroline. It's great having you, and look forward to seeing you shortly for presenting Pet Psychic Amina. Bye-bye.